This episode is brought to you by Rocky Mountain PBS and 104.7 The Drop. Because The Drop aims to inspire people towards deeper, more meaningful connections with their community through the celebration of urban alternative music, arts, and culture. They're all about creating a unique sound that's locally rooted with global reach. From the morning mix block to new music discovery or to hear your favorite current or throwback hip-hop and urban alternative, 104.7 The Drop has something for everyone. You can listen online or via the Drop 303 app anytime, anywhere. Or if you're in the Denver area, you can catch 104.7 The Drop on air. Today on CityCast Denver. Denver didn't used to be a bagel town, at least not that I can remember. Boy, have things changed. In the last 6 months, we've had all kinds of new bagel places popping up. So we're pitting two of the buzziest new spots, Call Your Mother and Rich Spirit, up against modern classic Rosenberg's and the ultimate OG Moe's to see once and for all who makes Denver's best bagel. Today is Monday, April 22nd. I'm Bree Davies, and here's what Denver's talking about. I'm here with our newsletter editor and resident foodie, Peyton Garcia. Good morning.
Hey, Bree.
And joining us to taste test some bagels and pick Denver's best are two true bagel lovers. First up, we've got Denverite transportation reporter Rebecca Tauber. Rebecca, what are your bagel credentials?
I am a lifelong bagel lover. You can't see I'm wearing a bagel hat right now. I have a bagel sticker on my water bottle. I am also from Philadelphia. I think the New York, New Jersey, Philly area, that's where
really
the real
bagel
stuff
hub
is. So I think that's where I really got my training in how to identify a good bagel. I'm Jewish. I feel like that should, go as part of the, yeah, exactly.
You also came in with questions. You were like, price per bagel. What do we got? So
it's about the holistic experience for me.
Well, we'll dig into that in a minute. But we have a listener who wrote us a very impressive and detailed ode to bagels, Shira Weiner. Shira, what makes a great bagel to you?
Ooh, for me, it's all about the texture. So I want that chewy inside, and then I want that super shiny, crunchy outside.
Okay. I'm going to look to both of you for guidance because I'll be honest with you. This was a tougher assignment than I expected. I don't know the dynamics of a good bagel.
Yeah, I already made this joke, but this is really just the Rebecca Shira show. Bree's here because she's the face of CityCast Denver, and I'm here because I'm the other person on the team who likes to eat. Doesn't matter what it is, I like to eat.
When we were preparing for this, we were all eating these bagels, and you guys had so many questions, and you were Rebecca's measuring the bagels, and I'm okay, so this is exactly why both of you are perfect. This took us a long time to figure out which bagels we wanted to assess. Do you remember how we even came up with this list? I mean, it was a combination of reader recommendations.
Yeah, I mean, like we do with all of these food battles, we did solicit some recommendations. And honestly, we talked about doing the bagel show for a really long time before we actually pulled the trigger because we knew that it was having its moment in Denver, but we didn't really feel like we were bagel experts. We didn't really know what made a good bagel. Which is why we put a call out to our listeners and to our readers, and we were like, hey, is one of you a bagel expert? Are you the bagel expert we need? And Shira was like, it's me.
We got a lot of pitches, but
yeah,
Shira, yours.
It was the bagel puns, They were everything.
You had you came in here, you made us cream cheese. I mean, you made us a cream cheese mix with.
We do have to talk about because I'm actively trying to find containers that I could put some of that in. No, but the process, I think it was pretty extensive. I think we relied a lot on reader and listener feedback. I actually didn't organize this one. Olivia did, and I'm a little bummed she's not on the mic today to tell us about it because I think it was a pretty daunting process.
It was a process.
So kudos to Olivia.
Also, Rebecca, we heard about you from Kyle Harris at Denverite when he was in for another interview, and he said, "Oh, you don't know the bagel expert until you meet Rebecca." And when you came in, just fully bageled out outfit wise, the measuring of the bagels, I was like, Kyle was not lying. So We did a lot of thinking and we came down to 4 contenders. I'm going to start by describing or talking a little bit about Call Your Mother, which I feel like is one of the more hyped ones of the last couple of years. I had to Google it and figure out what this place was about, because to me, all I knew was that it was the place that went into the half burned down 7-Eleven in Capitol Hill that had been vacant for almost 20 years. So they actually opened 3 locations in Denver starting last fall: Capitol Hill, Tennyson Street, and Hilltop. To me, they're kind of the Voodoo Donuts of bagels, and that it's like a popular out-of-state chain. It's still smaller. It's not like a massive chain like an Einstein's, but it has a shtick about it. It's got,
super kitsch.
Yeah, it's kitsch. The pink, it's like the branding is very specific. It's like attractive, I think, especially to young people. It looks like a cool place to hang out. It looks like a cool place to hang out. It looks like a cool place to take pictures. And they also do this sort of weird flavor combination things. Like they have a maple salt and pepper bagel. They had a tuna salad smear. They do full-on breakfast sandwiches. The craziest one I found was the Mountain View, which actually has a latke in it.
So good. So caveat here, I used to work for a nonprofit based in D.C., which is
where they came from.
Exactly. So I was an early taster of Call Your Mother for Denver. I would get bagel sandwiches there. And the sandwich that they have, I think it's like egg, avocado, and latke, was definitely a really popular one. Love it's a fun vibe. It's a heavy sandwich. You're not going back to work after that one.
And again, like I said, pink exterior, interior, this beautiful branding, very internet-y of now, TikTok, Instagram friendly, I think. Rebecca, did you share a little tidbit for us on the background of the folks who started Call Your Mother?
It was founded by President Joe Biden's current chief of staff. So do with that information what you will.
But, DC, it's full of people in politics and people who like bagels.
They don't just like politics there. They like bagels.
Also like bagels. So that was that was one of the contenders. Up next, Rebecca, why don't you tell us about Moe's Bagels?
I love Moe's. I cried the first time I entered Moe's. It felt like home to me.
Really?
So Moe's was founded by somebody from New York, learned how to make bagels in New York, met his wife in Boulder, opened the first one in Boulder. So they have a couple locations in Boulder and then like Longmont, one in Denver, etc. To me, like you were talking about Call Your Mother, I'm very much a traditionalist. I don't want like the crazy things on the bagels. I don't want kitsch or shtick. Like to me, Moe's feels like a really authentic bagel place. Like I'm from Philly, my family's from New Jersey. I walked into Moe's, I was like, this could be in a New Jersey strip mall, and I mean that in like the most loving way.
Well, and I'm glad you said that, because to me, this is the hometown hero, right? That was part of the reason we picked it. It's the one that's, quote, from Colorado, or I think it's from Boulder, like you said, but it is really rooted in the East Coast tradition of a really good bagel, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I like about it, is it like feels like it's of a place. Like, I don't know, I kind of like bristle against like really shticky things, or like a lot of like TikTok marketing that can like feel pretty inauthentic to me. As I said, I'm Jewish. Like Moe's feels Jewish to me in like a subtle way. I'm also a writer. I always say show, don't tell.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what Moe's is doing. I also just realized I have my Moe's punch card that I carry with me at all times.
You pull it out of your phone, so you don't even just have it in your wallet. You carry that thing with you all the time.
Yeah, it's a fresh one because I just got my free bagel because I just checked off the last one on my old one.
When I moved to Denver, having the Moe's stickers, those free flower stickers, felt like such a rite of passage.
The Moe's bagel flower. Yeah, you can see this anywhere and you know this is a Moe's bagel sticker. Well, Shira, let's go to you. You're going to tell us about Rosenberg's.
Yeah, so this was really fitting because Rosenberg's opened in 2014, which is the year I moved to Denver. So it felt like Shira's coming to town. We need some really good new bagels. So that feels fitting. I think one of the cool things about Rosenberg's, and some of your listeners might know this, is that the founder of Rosenberg's, one of his big things was that they wanted to replicate the New York City water.
Which is supposed to be a key ingredient in a bagel.
Exactly.
Right?
According to a Denver Post article, they reverse osmosis Denver tap water, and then they add back in, let me get this right, magnesium and calcium Calcium, I think. I had it written down here somewhere. And they try and match the mineral content of New York City water with Denver water, and that helps to get like the crisp on the outside, chewy on the inside texture.
Do you think that that's...
Yeah, I want to hear
it. That's wild.
Emotionally, it feels good.
Marketing-wise, you're like, I like this.
I like this.
It's resonating with me. Is it real?
I also think there's so many factors that determine the texture and taste of a bagel, like the types of flour you're using, the temperature you bake it at, that like in a blind taste test, could I taste the difference between? Probably not.
Fair point.
So wait, is Rosenberg's was started here?
Yeah, okay. I believe the owner was a graduate of CU Boulder and then started it while he was, or shortly after graduating school as part of like an entrepreneurial program.
Okay.
So this one's been around for about 10 years in Denver. And then we've got Moe's, which is the OG to Denver. And then we have Call Your Mother, which is like the much hyped one. And then the next one is what Peyton got, which is Rich Spirit. And it's the most recent one, I think. And it's like, it feels like the culinary experience one. It feels, tell us about it and maybe we can get a vibe for what it is.
It's the hot bagel right now.
Okay.
It is. So they just opened. They only started doing walk-ins last week. Otherwise, you had to do your pre-orders because they've only been open for, not very long. I think the start of the year. Rich Spirits was started by 2 New Yorkers who moved to Colorado back in 2019.
This is the secret. You got to be from New York.
You got to be a New Yorker. Yeah. So they actually came, but they didn't start with a bagel place. They started doing bakeries, or they started with a bakery. They did pastries, and they're actually the founders of Bakery 4, which started in the Highlands and is now on Tennyson. Yeah, now on Tennyson in the Berkeley neighborhood. And the reason they kind of pivoted, so they still do Bakery 4, but their bagels were selling out like nobody's business. Like people were waiting upwards of 2 hours in line to get their bagels. So they decided, we're going to just make a whole shop dedicated to bagels.
They just recently made it so you can actually just walk up and order a bagel, because I know in preparation for this, we were trying to figure out, it was like one of those where you have to order it ahead of time or wait for a drop. I don't know. This made me very suspicious, to be honest with you guys.
No, it's so they describe themselves as this is how they describe their whole thing. Quote, "We took principles from bagels all over the world and created a bagel that is 100% our own." So they're kind of an East Coast meets West Coast bagel hybrid.
Okay.
They said that they take the naturally leavened sourdough style from the West Coast, and then they use dark malt in the dough with a long fermentation, which is a New York style in the process. They are purists, bagel purists. They only have 5 flavors, which is a classic, a sesame sea salt, a poppy, and an everything.
So they're
is that
kind
only
of
4?
I think
I wrote classic, sesame sea salt, poppy, salt, and everything, which sounds like that's 3 salt bagels. But
salt with a feeling extra salty about them.
So they're kind of the hot thing right now. You can find them in Gold's Marketplace in Wheat Ridge.
Do they serve bagel sandwiches, or is it just bagels, cream cheese?
Bagels and cream cheese, period. No sandwiches.
Versus like Call Your Mother and Moe's and Rosenberg's too, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay. So those are our contenders. We've got Moe's, Rosenberg's, Call Your Mother, and Rich Spirit.
Winding through the canyon, her anticipation rose. Monarch Casino Resort Spa, the epitome of mountain chic. Her pulse raced as she sat down at a high-limit baccarat table. Hungry, she chose the Southwest fusion flavors of Bistro Mariposa before sending to bliss at top-rated Spa Monarch for a signature massage treatment. She slept well in her luxurious hotel room, fulfilled by her stay. Write your own story at monarchblackhawk.com.
Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call or text 1-800-GAMBLER.
Hey, it's Bree Davies, host of CityCast Denver. Growing up in Denver, it took me a while to find my place in the city. I wanted to understand our city's politics better and how they impacted things like the arts community, which is where my heart is. That's why the mission of CityCast Denver speaks to me. We spend all day, every day, finding the most compelling stories, the most exciting people, and the best insider recommendations so you can make the most of the city and also make the city better. Members of CityCast Denver make that possible, and we could not keep doing this work without you. Become a member of CityCast Denver today at membership.citycast.fm and get exclusive perks like ad-free listening, event invites, and members-only updates. That's membership.citycast.fm. Thanks. We're just going to go through each of them, and I just want you guys to give your idea or thoughts on each of the bagels, and then we will rank the bagels number 1 through 4. Let's start with Moe's. Anybody who have some thoughts they want to share about Moe's?
I'll say Moe's is like my hometown hero. It's what I know. I live up north, as a lot of listeners know, and then my in-laws are from Boulder, so I spend a lot of time in the Boulder, Lafayette, Longmont areas. I lived in Louisville for a long time, so Moe's is what I know.
This is a proximity bagel.
Yes, yeah, it's like really the only good bagel you can get out there. I mean, that you don't have Call Your Mother or Rosenberg's. Up north, you have Moe's, which is great because it's so pop. People love Moe's.
So it gets the job done.
Yeah, I love it. I go all the time.
What about you, gals? What do you think? What are you both thinking?
I agree. Moe's totally gets the job done. Shira, your definition of what makes a good bagel, I 100% agree with. It's got to be crispy on the outside, soft on the inside. Moe's definitely checks that box. I'm thinking about height. I've found living outside of the East Coast, height is the hardest part to like replicate outside of the like New York, New Jersey area.
Our bagels are just like flatter here.
Yeah. And it's not just a Denver thing. Like I think outside of an area where you have lots of competition for good bagels, like you definitely have thinner, flatter bagels. So I think Moe's, in my opinion, achieves like the best height from what we were trying. I don't know if you want me to talk about price now or later. I think that's important.
Yeah. What did you think price-wise? You priced all these out.
I priced all them out. Do you want me to break the prices down now or later?
Yeah. Let's talk about it.
Moe's is, so I priced out just an everything bagel with cream cheese, and Moe's is also the best value.
Okay.
So that would be $4 at Moe's.
Oh.
$4.75 at Call Your Mother, $5 at Rich Spirit, and $6 at Rosenberg's.
Interesting.
I'll also jump in here. One of the things when I moved to Denver, I was a poor nonprofit employee, and Moe's Bagels sells day-old huge bags of bagels.
Yes.
You get like a dozen bagels for like $5, and they're still relatively fresh, like baked less than 24 hours ago. So when I first moved to Denver in my early 20s, that was a real grocery staple.
Okay, so Moe's is winning at least so far just on the proximity nature and the value.
I mean, we live for those day-old bagels in my house.
Yeah.
But okay, let's talk a little bit. You talked about height a little bit here. You said this was the highest, Rebecca, right? Gave you the most height?
Yeah, that's kind of like the sense I get. I still think like there's room to go taller, but yeah.
And you're talking about the actual height of a bagel that's laying flat.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like
Just
picture,
make sure.
I would say all the bagels we had got like pretty decent height. Like picture that compared to like an Einstein's bagel, for example.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and we actually thought about bringing them into this, but then we were
So glad you didn't.
Night and day.
yeah. I mean, I have to say this was one of my favorite bagels. I just did the plain bagel, plain cream cheese. It got the job done. It was chewy. It had that like outside that was nice. It was still a little bit, it wasn't too dense on the inside. And for a while in this taste test, it was my number 1. I'll get to that later. But taste-wise, what do you guys think?
Well, I'll say I came into this with a little bit of a bagel scorecard because I wanted to be prepared. And one of the factors on my bagel scorecard was the shiny crust, as I mentioned. And I would say Moe's had the shiniest of the 4.
Okay, let's move on to Rosenberg's. What did you guys think about Rosenberg's?
Not enough seasoning. I'll say that off the bat. Compared to, I would say the other two, like I want like you can hardly even see the bagel underneath the seasoning, and Rosenberg's really skimping out on the seasoning. I think the visual was very clear there, especially when you bring in like price for the seasoning you're getting. I thought the bagel itself was good, hit the like crispy outside, chewy inside, but the seasoning
wasn't enough.
Was tough for me.
Did you do an everything bagel there or sesame?
I did sesame.
Okay,
if you could call it that.
Oh,
yeah.
Ooh.
I could totally a sesame seed in sight.
I could totally agree with that. I really liked Rosenberg's. They are just like breadier and like chewier and like airier than I feel like some of the others were, because I felt like 2 of them were particularly dense, and I just don't think I like that very much in a bagel. And I really like an egg bagel, and I had an egg bagel and it was good. But also I put Shira's special cream cheese on it that she brought us, and it was like
sort of cheating, but
delicious.
Shout out to Joshua Cohn's book, I Could Nosh, which is where I got that recipe from.
Okay.
It was delicious.
We'll have to share a
it.
link to that.
I liked Rosenberg's though. They ranked number 2 for me.
And I kind of am with you as it was fine. I don't know. Nothing really stood out to me about it, to be honest with you. Okay. Let's talk about Call Your Mother. What do you guys think about Call Your Mother? This is the hype bagel. This is the Instagram-y, TikTok-y bagel place.
I really enjoyed Call Your Mother. So I don't know if you know Dan Pashman. He's a food reporter, host of The Sporkful.
Yes.
He has a great piece about bagelflation and how bagels have gotten much larger in size since the 90s. And I fully agree with his thesis. I think a lot of bagels are, I'm actually going to say too big. Like they're more than a serving, but you don't really want to only have half a bagel. And I think Call Your Mother, to me, is like the best size of the four.
Okay. So it's a good size bagel.
And really good topping ratio.
What kind did you have? You have an everything? Or?
I tried a sesame bagel from all four places,
Okay.
and it had a really nice sesame ratio.
Okay. Rebecca, what'd you think?
I also went sesame across the board. I think Call Your Mother's good. Like, I think, as I was saying, checks the boxes for me for what I'm looking for. I think another mark of a good bagel is that it should not have to be toasted to be good if it was baked that day. If you're trying to revive like a day or two old bagel, that's totally fine. But I would say, and again, I feel like all of these hit that category, and that's when I would compare it to something like what you would get at Einstein's or the grocery store or something like that. Like, in order for that to be good, you kind of have to toast it. But I would say, yeah, had the crisp, like, good texture to me, good seed coverage.
I'm glad you brought up the toasting part because we did not toast our bagels.
Yeah.
And that's a good point that it's been baked or cooked. Let's try it as it is. I have to say it was too dense for me.
I
didn't love it.
I want to say
It's too heavy.
Granted, like I said, these guys are the bagel experts, so I totally think there were more. I didn't really like Call Your Mother's. I actually ranked them last personally. I thought it was too dense, and
Yeah.
I did plain bagels from across the board because
Same.
I wanted to just kind of have a baseline, and it was like weirdly sweet. I didn't like how sweet
they're
it was.
known for having a sweeter dough. And I don't know why that is, if they use like a sweeter flour. Sometimes too, it depends on what you boil the bagels in. So I'd be curious to know, like a Montreal style bagel will have like honey or something sweet in whatever they're boiling in it. So I'd be curious to know if that's where it gets its sweetness or if they just add like sugar or something sweet to the flour mixture. I don't know.
It's not my favorite. I think it's just one of those ones that like people got really stoked about it. It was coming from DC, and
To me, it's an experience thing. Like, it's more of I'm hungover with my friends. I want to go wait in line and get a good breakfast sandwich on a Saturday morning kind of thing. It reminds me of, I think Molly Martin made this point in her Westward piece about it. It's right across the street from Jelly Cafe, which was a similar experience about 10 years ago. It was like the cool place, plays hip hop, has old cereal boxes on the wall. Like, it was very photogenic. And it reminds me of that, in that, like, also again, like the voodoo donuts of it all. It's like a cool place. It's a cool place. It's less about the art of
I'll
the
be the
bagel.
contrarian. I don't know. I really bristle against that. Like, if
I'm not saying I like that, but I feel, it's like if you're thinking of this place will stand out versus like a Moe's, and I think that's intentional, right?
Yeah.
No, I feel you. I'm a little bit of a purist in that sense where I'm like, why do I need all this crap around me? Is the bagel good or not? So, okay, finally, Rich Spirit, the real culinary, the thinking man's bagel to me. What did you guys think about this?
I loved it.
Yeah.
I thought it was so good. I thought it was and I don't know. I did have to do the research for Rich Spirit, and so like I really dived deep into their Instagram, and I like read all of the local like media coverage about them, and I don't know if that got in my head, but I thought they were so good. I thought that they were super crispy on the outside, but still really doughy and chewy and airy on the inside. I'm also a salt fan, so I just want to talk about the salt for a minute because because
they didn't have a plain.
Well, they didn't
We
have,
did
their
salts
plain is
was the
salted.
most plain.
But I would also say that they're, like I said, when I read the flavors, they have like 3 of them are salt options. And when I was like scrolling through their Instagram, it's like the number one complaint I saw from trolls on their Instagram is it's
too
like
salty.
Reduce the salt, too salty, which I get, but I'm a big salt person. So I really liked that,
liked
but
that
I
they
could
leaned into the salt.
understand why there's people who don't.
Well, that's what I was going to say is I also would consider myself like I like things pretty salty. I actually, when I'm making a bagel sandwich, believe you have to put something salty on the cream cheese. It can't just be on the bottom. So that's why I like to put capers on top. I'm also known to put extra everything bagel seasoning on the cream cheese. So which is to say, like, I also, like a salty bagel. I did think this was a little too salty for me. I tried the everything and the sesame, and I think when I'm like thinking about how it's like kind of salty, it's like a little too much. I also think it was a little too chewy for me, just kind of like the texture that might kind of be a personal preference. Like, I kind of prefer, as I was saying, bagels that are like thicker and fluffier.
It had like an artisanal bread look to it versus a really good basic bagel. Like I see what you're. I was feeling the same way.
I felt the same way. It felt the most like eating a really good slice of bread and the least like eating a bagel.
Yeah.
I did really, though, to your point, I think you were talking a little bit about the fermentation process, and it was the one where I tasted the most tang, and I got that like natural fermentation taste, which I liked.
They talk about that a lot in their interviews, is that's like something that they're cognizantly trying to achieve.
And I'm with you, Pei. At first, I was like, this is too salty. And then I was like, I want another piece of this bagel. And it's the only one I got seconds of. Yeah. Because also, you can only eat so much bagel.
I mean, did I stick one in my purse while you guys weren't looking?
You did. That's where it went. I loved it. I loved this bagel. But so now I'm questioning it. Maybe it's because it tasted like bread.
Well, I
okay, see, that's what I'm saying. Is I actually am not surprised that if you're following along, Bree and I are kind of tracking in what we like. Two Colorado girls who don't really know what the hell
we're talking about.
But then we've got two like East Coast homies over here, and they're kind of tracking.
Tuned into the bagel.
Well, I had the opposite experience to you, where the first bite I took, I was like, "Oh, this is good," and this was the only one that I hadn't tried coming into this. I took a first bite, I was like, "Oh, this is good," and then the more I ate it, the more I was like, I have some notes. But I do think we definitely have a like traditionalist, non-traditionalist divide going on here.
Which I like, because I think that's what we wanted to get to. Absolutely. Was like, Peyton and I are not bagel experts.
We're just here because we needed a city cast representative here.
I will say, overall, I enjoyed the taste. So I officially tasted the sesame, which I really, like I said, there was a really nice sweetness, a really nice tang. I loved the color that they get from whatever really they boil the bagels bagel. In. I'm not sure if you
they do. All I could tell you is they add lots of malt.
Yeah, so that's why you get that like dark color, and I do really enjoy that like visually.
Why don't we say our rankings and then go from there? So I'll say that mine was Rich Spirit was number 1, Rosenberg's was 2, Moe's was 3, and Call Your Mother was dead last. Rebecca?
So I put Moe's first, then Call Your Mother, then Rosenberg's, and then Rich Spirit.
So like the exact opposite of mine.
So I will say, before I give my ranking, that if you had asked me what my favorite bagel in Denver is prior to this morning, I would have said Rosenberg's. It's where I go the most. I love their sandwich options. They have really good cured fish, good whitefish salad, yummy things all around. They have really good challah breads on Fridays. So, that being said,
it's a big caveat, but yes.
Yes. That being said, my ranking is actually, I'm going to go Call Your Mother first, Rosenberg second, Moe's third, and Rich Spirit's fourth.
Wow.
So very similar to Rebecca's. Okay, Bree, I have to hear yours. The suspense is killing me.
Well, Moe's was my number 1. Yes. I loved it. It got the job done. It was perfect. I had no notes. Rich Spirit, that was like, to me, we just recently did a show on Munchies. This is me, my stoner bagel, where I was like, oh, you know what I want? I just want a big old salty bagel from Rich Spirit.
You mean a big old salty piece of bread?
Yes, a big old salty piece of bread where I would have to be in the mood. It wouldn't be like, oh, breakfast, driving by, I'm going to pick some up.
I could eat that every day.
So Rich Spirit's my second. Rosenberg's was my third. Call Your Mother was my fourth.
I
did not like it.
Funny.
I didn't like that.
So
bagel.
they both put Rich Spirit as their last, and we both put Call Your Mother as our last.
There is
just funny.
We don't have any consensus here. Really.
I feel like we all ranked Rosenberg's decently. Like Rosenberg's was the only one that didn't get bottom or top.
Yeah, it's really in the middle, but it's like we don't have a consensus. I mean,
I think you decide, listeners. You decide: are you a Brie Peyton kind of person? Are you a Shira Rebecca
kind of person?
We had
the same first
one. We did.
We
both had Moe's. So at this point,
my one caveat with Moe's too is I think coming into this, like I said, I eat Moe's a lot. It's the only bagel I go to. So I think there was like something about eating something that wasn't Moe's that might have influenced my ranking, because it's like, it's just Moe's is what I'm used to, which is great. I love Moe's, but.
So I will also say there's another factor that we haven't talked about. Which I think is like ease of access. So when I first moved here, the only bagel place I had really heard about was Rosenberg's. And so that's where I would go. But there were a couple times where I would go, like, I have this issue where when I think about a bagel, I have to have one. And there were a few times I'd go to Rosenberg's on the weekend. Their online orders have closed because it's filled up. Their line is super long. It can literally take you like an hour
to get a bagel.
And then there was one time I went and I was like, I'm so hungry. Like, I can't wait. And then that's how I found Moe's. And like, I think all these places like will have like a decent line at peak hours. But I feel like Moe's, like you go there even during rush hour, like you know that you'll get your bagel. I can't really speak to Call Your Mother. And then with Rich Spirit, I don't want to be too early to judge because they're clearly still in the process of opening.
Shira, what did you rank Moe's?
I ranked Moe's third, but I do need to say that, like, if we were ranking all the bagels on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm happy with all the bagels. Like, I'm not ranked. None of them are getting a failing grade. You all forced me, twisted my arm to pick a favorite, but I truly enjoyed all of them as different experiences.
I would agree with you. To me, bagels fall into two categories. I would eat it or I would not eat it. And these all met the former category. Like, the I would not eat it unless I was like camping or something would be like the Thomas sleeve at the grocery store. This might be a little like blasphemous, but Dunkin', Einstein's, that all falls in the category of like, I'm just going to have toast at that point.
Instead. Well, I mean, I have to say, I think Moe's wins because at least half of us was the only consensus we could make.
I could agree with that.
I think Moe's is the winner. Moe's Bagels.
Good
Look at
job,
that.
Moe's.
Denver Pride.
Denver Pride.
Or Boulder. Front Range.
Boulder Pride with a little East Coast flair in the back of it. I love that. Well, Peyton, Shira, and Rebecca, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
So fun.
That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. If you enjoyed this show, why not take a minute to tell Mo about us? Rate the show wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe to our morning newsletter and learn more about us at denver.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. See you later. You guys are like, but okay, I would really eat any of these things.
But really, I'm happy eating all of them.